They say marriages start to die in silence, but mine began bleeding out in lace and lavender. On a humid Thursday, I came home early from a client meeting, laptop bag slung over one shoulder, still chewing the last bite of a gas station protein bar, when I noticed something odd. The hallway mirror was fogged. Not just fog, dripping. The kind of steam that clings when two people have been aggressively showering together. The kicker? She was supposed to be visiting her sick aunt 3 states away. That should have been my cue to lose it, storm the bathroom, scream bloody murder, but I didn't. Instead, I tiptoed past the half-closed door like a damn librarian, noted the 2 towels tossed carelessly on the floor, one of them navy, not ours, and turned straight for the laundry basket. It was as if my hands were moving on their own, like some invisible puppet string pulled me straight to the evidence. And there it was, a pair of black lace panties inside out, wet with the kind of betrayal detergent can't clean. She never wore lace. Hated how it itched. Always called it stripper fabric. But someone had been strutting in it, sweating in it, lying in it. I didn't hear moaning, no giggles, no panting. Just the water still running like a background line no one bothered to mute. Maybe they heard the door and froze. Maybe she was alone and just taking a long, guilt-soaked rinse. Or maybe, and more likely, the coward bailed out the bathroom window when he heard my keys. I waited for her to emerge. She finally stepped out in my old college hoodie, her usual post-sex costume, ironic now, and blinked like a deer who just spotted the scope. "Hey babe, you're home early?" That fake smile couldn't cover the bruise on her collarbone. Not a hickey. No, a pressure bruise. Thumb-shaped. The kind you only get when someone's gripping you like they're trying to stake a claim. My voice didn't shake. Client canceled. "How's your aunt?" That one landed. Her pupils twitched. "Same. Bad. I came back early too. Just missed you, I guess." Her eyes flicked toward the laundry basket. I didn't follow. I just nodded, kissed her on the forehead like I believed her, and offered to make tea. Because if I was right, and I'd need time. Time to verify. Time to plan. Time to find the sharpest scalpel, not the loudest weapon. Her older sister Mia called 2 days later, just to catch up. We hadn't talked in months. But her voice sounded like wine and danger, and I figured if I was going to burn this house down, I might as well start with the wood closest to the fire. We used to have this rhythm, this unspoken choreography between us, shared glances across the kitchen, quiet laughter over late-night wine, the kind of intimacy that made the world outside feel muted. For a while, even after that steamy bathroom lie, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe I misread the signs. Maybe I was just tired. But then the rhythm changed. Not like a song ending, but like someone subtly slipping into a different key, familiar but off. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still said, "Love you" before bed, but her eyes started darting elsewhere. I noticed it first on a Thursday, how she dressed up to go to the bookstore. A full face of makeup, heels, perfume, the expensive kind I bought her last Christmas that she said gave her a headache. When I raised an eyebrow, she smiled and said, "It's a self-care thing. You wouldn't get it." And maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't want to. She started taking long walks alone in the evenings, claiming she needed time to process her thoughts. Sometimes she'd leave her phone behind, something she never used to do, not even during sex. And yet, when she came back, her cheeks would be flushed like she'd run a marathon, and there'd be that same damn perfume lingering like a ghost behind her. I checked her phone once, not to snoop, just to check the time, and noticed her Instagram was now locked. Private, even from me. When I asked, she said, "I just need space to post without pressure." Pressure from who? We barely had 20 followers between us. But I let it go. I told myself trust is about letting go of the rope even when you're dangling over fire. Then came the purchases. A new silk robe, red, low cut, tags still on. Not my style. Not hers either, at least not before. It appeared on our credit card statement as Intima Rouge. When I asked her about it, she laughed and said it was just for fun. But she never wore it around me. Not once. She started talking in cliches. I need to focus on my journey. Maybe we're evolving differently. Not every silence needs to be filled. Every new phrase sounded like it had been pre-chewed by a therapist and regurgitated with purpose. Then came the therapy sessions. I thought it was couples therapy at first. "Nope. Just for me," she said. "I need to reconnect with who I was before all this." What was all this, exactly? A loyal husband? A mortgage? A stable life? Was I now the villain in her self-help novel? One night, I found a scarf in her car. Black, silk, scented with cologne I didn't wear. She claimed it was her coworker's wife's. It fell in during carpool. Right. Except she doesn't carpool. I knew that. She knew I knew that. But neither of us said anything. I just handed it back, smiling like a man waiting for his execution, pretending the blindfold didn't itch. We stopped making love. Or rather, she stopped responding. Her body was there, but it felt like kissing a stranger, one who tolerated my touch like a monthly subscription she'd forgotten to cancel. I still cooked dinner. Still brought her coffee in the mornings. Still believed, against my better judgment, that maybe this was a phase. Maybe she was just tired, confused, overwhelmed. Because hope is a stupid, dangerous thing. It clings to you long after it should be dead. And I was still hoping. Even as she slipped further away, glowing with secrets she wouldn't share, locking doors she used to leave open, and smiling that hollow smile that ended 2 inches short of her eyes. It was a Sunday morning when the world finally snapped. We were sitting on the patio, sunlight filtering through the trees like nothing was wrong, her sipping chamomile tea from a mug that said "Breathe deep," a gift from me she once adored, but now treated like background scenery. She was scrolling her phone, absently tapping and swiping, pretending to be present while her soul was clearly somewhere else. I was reading the paper, or pretending to, but my eyes were on her reflection in the sliding glass door. It's funny how people forget glass is a mirror when they're outside looking in. Her face changed, just for a second. A quick, involuntary twitch of the lips. The corner of a smirk she didn't mean to let slip. She angled her phone away like a teenager hiding texts from a parent. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I folded the paper, stood up, kissed the top of her head, and said I'd take the trash out. She barely acknowledged it. I walked calmly to the side of the house, waited exactly 5 minutes, then circled back quietly, barefoot, to the window behind her chair. She was FaceTiming someone, low voice, that fake whisper laugh she only used when she was trying to sound irresistible. No, he's just taking the trash. Don't worry, he's clueless. That laugh again. I wish I could see you today too, but it's his day off. Ugh. The word ugh sliced me sharper than any blade. Not anger. Not guilt. Just ugh, as if I were a smudge on her week. She kept talking. You're the only one who sees me. I feel alive with you. He's just there. My heart didn't race. My fists didn't clench. Instead, a strange stillness settled in. A cold clarity, like watching a fire from behind glass. She called him babe. Said she wore that red robe just for him. The one I hadn't seen outside the closet. Said she missed the way he grabbed her neck, right there, on the patio where she now sat. My patio. My home. My life. Every word she spoke twisted the knife, but I didn't bleed. I just memorized. Cataloged. I moved back to the driveway, came through the front door, loud this time, whistling like an idiot in love. She had already pocketed the phone and was sipping her tea again like nothing had happened. Thanks for taking it out, she said. I smiled. Anything for you. In that moment, I wasn't a man anymore. I was a weapon. I realized then, this wasn't just infidelity, it was erasure. She'd erased me from her desire, her plans, her emotional life. I was a placeholder. A pet. A walking wallet she no longer needed but hadn't figured out how to discard yet. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. No, I wasn't going to scream or beg or accuse. I was going to become the storm she never saw coming. She thought I was clueless. That was her first mistake. Now, she had no idea what I'd just become. She thought I was stupid, and I let her believe that. That was her second mistake. From the outside, everything went back to normal: breakfast on the patio, goodnight kisses, polite conversation about weekend plans she never intended to keep. But behind the stillness, my mind had shifted into predator mode. I didn't need to confront her. I needed to dissect her. And that meant patience. So I played the role of doting husband while I quietly built a map of her lies. First, I started with the calendar. Hers was always visible on the fridge, color-coded and meticulously organized, or at least it used to be. Suddenly, there were vague entries: meeting, workout, dinner, tentative. Nothing that couldn't be twisted later. So I mirrored her calendar on my phone, syncing it to track the inconsistencies in real time. Next came the financials. She never noticed I had set up alerts on our joint account. Every time she used the card, I got a ping. A charge came in for a juice bar we never visited. Then a boutique spa across town. Not the one she told me she loved. I called both locations posing as her assistant, charming, apologetic, asking if she'd left behind a scarf. Only one confirmed her recent visit. The other had no idea who she was. I logged the times, cross-referenced them with her calendar entries. 2 lies in 1 week. Then I moved to her car, not breaking in, just checking casually when I washed it, which she was grateful for. In the side door pocket, I found a parking stub from a high-rise she had no reason to visit. I called the building under the guise of a delivery driver and got the directory. One name stood out: Drew Halpern, mid-level executive. I remembered the name vaguely from a dinner party we attended last year, someone she laughed a little too hard with, someone who'd complimented her perfume while I was 2 seats away. I searched him on LinkedIn, confirmed his face, then cross-checked his social media. Private, of course, but not private enough to keep me from noticing a reflection in the background of one of his stories, a red silk robe, just barely visible in the mirror behind him. It was posted 2 weeks ago, the same night she claimed she stayed home, too tired to go out. I screenshotted it, saved everything. I didn't tell a soul. Not yet. I wasn't building a case for a lawyer. I was building a psychological demolition plan. I wanted her to hang herself with the rope she thought was slack. So I started planting questions like seeds. Didn't you say you had a meeting on Tuesday? Watching her blink, recalibrate, then say, oh, right, rescheduled it last minute. I'd smile. Of course. You've been so busy. And she'd nod, relieved, thinking the noose was loose again. I followed her best friend, Tara. Not physically, digitally. I created a dummy account and followed her on Instagram, posing as a self-help coach offering free readings. Tara bit instantly. Within 3 messages, she was bragging about how her best friend had finally found someone who sees her, how she was done with her boring husband. I asked questions. I made her feel important. People always spill for an audience, especially when they think it's safe. She mentioned a hotel, the same high-rise from the parking stub. I thanked her, blocked her, and archived every message. Then came the final trap. I sent flowers to her office. Just a small bouquet, no note, under a fake name. 2 hours later, she texted me, "Thanks for the flowers, babe." I replied, "What flowers?" Watch the typing bubble. Then it stopped. Oh wait, maybe they were from work. I assumed. My bad. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't just lying, she was improvising, flailing, panicking in slow motion. And I didn't say a word. I just saved the message and smiled at my screen. I had everything I needed. I had the time, the dates, the receipts, the photos. But more importantly, I had her rhythm. I knew how she lied, when she lied, and how she cleaned up afterward. And now, I was going to use every beat of that rhythm to write her downfall. Because she thought the game was still hers. That was her final mistake. It was her company's annual fundraiser gala, black tie, velvet curtains, string quartet humming in the background, and champagne that tasted more like ego than grapes. I offered to attend, of course, because appearances matter when your wife is climbing corporate ladders with stilettos sharpened by deceit. She wore a red dress that looked like it was stitched from the skin of her own lies, backless, tight, familiar. I'd seen it before, months ago, in the reflection of another man's hotel room mirror. But tonight, I smiled, held her hand, played the proud husband while she introduced me to board members and interns with hollow affection. I waited until dessert. Not before. Before would have been too merciful. A waiter approached our table, silver tray in hand, but instead of dessert, he placed a plain black envelope in front of her with a quiet, "Special delivery, ma'am." She laughed nervously, expecting a donor thank you or corporate gag. Instead, she slid out a photograph, just one. Her. On a hotel bed. Legs around Drew Halpern's waist. Face half turned, mid-laugh, looking like someone I didn't recognize anymore. Her hands trembled. She looked up at me, panic flickering behind her lashes. "What is this?" I took a sip of wine. "You tell me." Her voice cracked. "This isn't what it looks like." I nodded slowly. "Of course not. Tell me what it is, then." It wasn't like that. We were drunk. It was one time. I tilted my head. It happened 5 times. In 3 different hotels. Should I go on? Her face flushed, then paled. Okay, it was complicated. Things between us have been distant. There it was. The pivot. You've been emotionally absent. I needed to feel seen. You didn't notice me anymore. I smiled, the kind of smile that says I've already seen the ending. Funny. I noticed everything. Your schedule. Your lies. Your perfume. The silk robe. You wore it for him, not me. I noticed that too. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for sympathy, for an escape, for a place to bury her shame. She tried again. You don't get to act like the victim here. You're cold, always in control, always watching. You don't know what it's like to feel trapped in your own marriage. I leaned forward just enough for her to feel the weight of my voice without raising it. You were never trapped. You were just greedy. You wanted his attention and my stability, his chaos and my safety. You wanted the thrill without the consequence. But now the bill's due. She let out a bitter laugh, brittle and forced. So what? You're going to humiliate me in front of everyone. That's your plan. I shook my head. No, that part's over. Everyone here is too polite to make a scene. But tomorrow, they'll get the email. With photos, dates, bank records, messages. You'll get to explain it all in HR. Her jaw dropped. You wouldn't. Already scheduled, I said. 8 a.m. sharp. Your assistant is copied. Her confidence cracked, just for a second. You don't want to do this. Think about your reputation too. I finished my wine. My reputation is intact. Yours is under review. Then came the tremor in her voice. The final shift. Please, let's talk about this. Privately. We can fix this. I'll do anything. I looked at her like she was a stranger on a train that had already left the station. You can't fix a house you've already burned to the ground. You didn't just cheat. You committed slow, calculated murder on what we had. And now you're asking me to pretend the ashes still smell like home. Her mouth opened, then closed. Words failed her for once. The string quartet played on. Glasses clinked in the distance. And there we sat, her shaking, me still. The entire room oblivious to the implosion occurring in their midst. She didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. Right now, she was calculating. Still thinking there might be a back door. Still trying to find the version of me who would forgive. But he was gone. I hadn't left the table yet. Not physically, but emotionally. I was already halfway out the door, and she knew it. The silence between us was no longer awkward. It was judgment. It was justice. And it had only just begun. She followed me home that night like a storm trying to chase the calm, slamming the car door, stomping into the house behind me, as if volume could undo what she had done. The moment we stepped inside, she dropped the mask and let the venom pour. You smothered me, she screamed, throwing her heels at the hallway wall. You were always watching me, judging me, treating me like I was some houseplant. I didn't respond. I poured myself a glass of water and drank it slowly, my eyes never leaving hers. Say something, she barked, eyes wild, pacing like a trapped animal. I placed the glass down with quiet precision. I was watching because I already knew. That stopped her, just for a second, but then the bile came back. You were boring, she hissed, her voice lower now sharper. Predictable. You talk like a spreadsheet. I needed someone who made me feel something. I nodded once. And now you feel exposed. Her lip curled. God, you're such a robot. Maybe if you had been a real man, this never would have happened. I didn't flinch. Maybe if you had been a real woman, you wouldn't have needed to feel like one. That hit something. Her face broke for a second, then hardened. You think you're so smart. Sitting there with your cold little plans, acting like you're above it all. But you're just a coward. You didn't fight for us. You just waited for me to fail. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, voice calm. No, I waited for you to reveal what you really are. She laughed, bitter and high-pitched. You're pathetic. Who even are you now? Some cold-blooded mastermind. I stared at her. I'm the man who knows who you are. And that's all I need to be. She was shaking now, not from fear, not yet, but from the unraveling. The realization that her arsenal of manipulation was empty. She tried again. You never really loved me. You loved owning me. I was just your trophy. I raised an eyebrow. A trophy doesn't sneak into cheap hotels. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. She pointed a trembling finger at me. You're not even angry. That's what's wrong with you. You're broken. I smiled then, but not with warmth. No, I'm just not broken by you anymore. She started pacing again, muttering things under her breath, half-formed insults and failed justifications, until finally she turned, voice trembling. I made a mistake, okay? But people recover from this. People forgive. I stepped forward slowly, deliberately. Forgiveness is for accidents, not strategies. She sank onto the couch, head in her hands, still trying to summon some version of herself that could win. You're going to destroy me, she whispered, almost like it was a question. I stared at her for a long time. You destroyed yourself. I just gave you the mirror. She sobbed once, then straightened up, wiping her eyes like a child caught lying. You're going to be alone. No one's going to love someone like you. I walked past her toward the stairs, stopping only to say, and no one will ever trust someone like you. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. I could feel her world collapsing behind me, brick by brick, each one carved with her own name. She thought anger would be my weakness. She was wrong. It was indifference that buried her. I began the same way I imagine every good general does, by knowing the terrain, counting my ammunition, and identifying every weak point in the enemy's defenses. And make no mistake, she had many. While she spiraled through emotional pleas, dramatic texts, and late-night attempts to reframe her betrayal as some tragic, accidental journey of self-discovery, I worked in silence. I backed up every message, every photo, every timestamped transaction into two separate encrypted drives, one stored online, the other physically hidden in a safety deposit box under a name she didn't know existed. Then I went to the bank. I closed the joint account with such calm efficiency that the teller complimented me on being decisive. I transferred my paychecks to a private account, locked my credit down, and froze every card she had access to. She didn't notice at first. She was too busy being dramatic. It wasn't until her Amazon package failed to process and her favorite subscription wine service got canceled that she called me in a panic. I let it go to voicemail. Next, I met with my lawyer. Quietly, we drafted divorce papers with a clause-by-clause breakdown of her financial obligations, including proof of marital misconduct, which she so graciously provided in high-definition JPEGs. I requested no alimony. She would get none. The house? In my name. The car? Mine. The business account I helped her set up, just in case she ever wanted to start freelancing? Drained. Legally. With documentation she had already signed 2 years ago, never reading the fine print. I revoked her access to our shared cloud and moved every file worth anything to a private server. She called again. And again. Then sent a voice memo, sobbing. You're trying to erase me, she whined. I didn't respond. I was too busy finishing the email to her HR department. No rage. Just the truth. With attachments. The email outlined how she had conducted a months-long affair with a known business contact, including exact dates when she claimed sick leave to visit him. I didn't send it immediately. I scheduled it. 9:03 a.m., Monday morning. Just after the staff meeting. Next came her family. I drove out to her parents' house, brought a bottle of wine and a folder. Her mother opened the door with her usual warmth until she saw my expression. We need to talk, I said, and I laid everything out in clean, undeniable clarity. Her father didn't speak for a long time, then asked quietly, Do you think she's sick? I said no. I said she was selfish, not sick. And then I left, leaving the folder behind. They called her that night. She didn't answer. I know, because she called me right after, hysterical, furious, betrayed. How could you involve my parents? I texted back one word. Facts. Her friends were next, select ones, the ones she gossiped with. I sent them photos too. Not to hurt her, but to remove her sanctuary. She had lied to them, played the victim. Not anymore. Then I cleaned the house. Not physically, legally. I changed the locks, informed the landlord, updated the insurance, and filed a police report about her unauthorized removal of valuables, one she had tried to pawn when she realized her card stopped working. I kept every receipt, every screenshot, every call log. The final move came quietly. I waited for her to schedule one of her now regular, soul-searching weekends to disappear into hotel rooms and scented betrayal. Then I staged the house, emptied her closet, left a copy of the divorce filing on the bed, and changed the Wi-Fi password. When she returned Sunday night, confused and angry, she found her key didn't work, her phone had no signal, and all her lies had finally run out of places to hide. She banged on the door, screaming, threatening to call the cops. So I called them first. A strange spouse, trying to force entry, I said calmly. They arrived, asked for ID, saw the paperwork, and told her to leave. She stood on the lawn, crying, begging, making promises she couldn't afford to keep. And I stood behind the window, silent, steady, watching the final piece slide into place. Because revenge doesn't come in screams. It comes in silence. It comes when she realizes the game is over and you never needed to play by her rules. It happened on a Thursday, during the quarterly networking mixer hosted by her firm, one of those overhyped, wine-slicked, self-congratulatory events where everyone pretends they're more important than they are. She had begged me to come. It'll look good if we show up together, she said, her voice artificially light, her eyes darting for reassurance I never gave. So I went. Not for her, but for the execution. She wore a dark green dress this time, the one that hugged her in ways meant to distract, to disarm, like maybe if she looked the part, she could still pretend to be it. We walked in together, arm in arm, and I let her glow. Let her greet old colleagues, kiss cheeks, smile through those manicured lies. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. I'd already spoken, in a language louder than words. Just 30 minutes before the event, every partner in her office received an anonymous email, clean, clinical, indisputable. A compilation of screenshots, timestamped photos, expense reports cross-referenced with romantic text exchanges. A map of her affair. A portfolio of her disintegration. They were reading it as we arrived. Phones buzzed in silent horror, heads turned with restrained curiosity, and conversations quieted when we passed. She didn't notice at first. Not right away. She was too caught up in her performance. Then her boss approached, stiff-backed, grim. "Can we speak?" he asked, eyes flicking to me with something between pity and admiration. She blinked, smiled, nodded, and followed him toward the back of the room. I stayed where I was, drink in hand, pretending to admire the catering spread. But I could see them, just far enough to read the body language. Her face shifted in real time, from confidence to confusion, then to horror. She started shaking her head. Denial. Then the gestures began, hands moving, defensive posture, her voice rising slightly. He didn't raise his. He simply handed her a printed packet. I knew what it was. I made it. She flipped through it rapidly, and when she looked up, her smile was gone. Just a slack-jawed, white-faced mask of panic. She came back to me seconds later, wide-eyed and stuttering. Did you send them this?" I met her gaze, slow and measured. They deserve to know who they're investing in. Her mouth opened, then closed. "You're ruining my life." I took a sip of scotch. "No, you did that. I just took notes." She looked around, suddenly hyper-aware of every glance, every whisper, the silent judgment crawling over her skin like insects. Her best friend, Tara, had just walked in and was now deep in conversation with one of the firm's senior partners. Tara looked over at me and gave a short nod, nothing more, but it landed like a thunderclap in her chest. She turned back to me. "You turned everyone against me." I smiled faintly. "No, you just gave them a reason to stop pretending." Then, like clockwork, Drew arrived, late, as usual, with that smug swagger that melted into panic the moment he saw us standing together. He froze. She saw him. Their eyes met. She moved toward him, desperate, hopeful. But he stepped back. His jaw clenched, and he muttered something she couldn't quite hear, then turned around and left. No greeting. No explanation. Nothing. Just an exit. That was when she broke. Her shoulders collapsed first, then her knees buckled just slightly, like her body could no longer hold the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She turned back to me, mascara starting to smear. "Please," she whispered. "Don't do this. We can fix it. I'll fix it. Just don't leave me like this." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched. Because that was what she feared most, not anger, not vengeance, but indifference. The realization that she no longer had power here. That I could witness her collapse without lifting a hand. That her words no longer mattered. Her voice cracked again. "Say something." I tilted my head slightly. "You used to be so good at pretending. I almost believed you had a soul." Her mouth trembled, and the tears came then, not performative, not theatrical, but real. The kind of crying that people try to hide, the kind that makes others uncomfortable. People were watching. Phones were discreetly aimed. Her world was folding in on itself, one quiet gasp at a time. But I didn't walk away. I stayed. I stood there like a monument to consequence, like a mirror she couldn't look away from. She tried to speak again, but her voice failed her. All that remained were the sounds of a woman crumbling under the weight of her own deception. And still, I didn't move. I just let her see me. The man she discarded. The man who rose. The man who won. It happened in her parents' living room, crowded, tense, the air so thick with judgment you could practically hear it breathing. We had been summoned, though no one admitted it aloud, for what was supposed to be a discussion, but everyone knew it was an execution. Her mother sat pale and stiff on the edge of the sofa, eyes wide and damp, clutching tissues that hadn't yet been used. Her father stood by the fireplace, jaw clenched like it had been welded shut. My sister sat beside me, arms folded, her disgust so visible it had a temperature. Tara was there too, nervously fiddling with her bracelet, avoiding everyone's gaze. And then she walked in, fashionably late as always, trying to summon that old smirk, the one she used to use like perfume. "So what now?" she said with a forced chuckle, like this was all one big misunderstanding. "We're going to play judge and jury in the living room." Her father raised a hand, but said nothing. I stood. "No, this isn't a trial. Trials are for people who pretend they're innocent." Her eyes darted around the room, then landed back on me. "You've poisoned everyone," she snapped, her voice sharp, shrill. "You've been feeding them lies." My sister scoffed. "The screenshots weren't lies. The hotel receipts weren't lies. The fact that you couldn't keep your legs closed for more than 5 days at a time? Also not a lie." Her jaw dropped. "Oh, so we're just going to slut-shame me now? Real classy." I stepped forward. "No, we're not shaming you for sex. We're shaming you for betrayal, for dishonesty, for looking your husband in the eyes while another man was still on your breath." Her face contorted, hands balled into fists. "I was lonely. You were like a ghost in our own home. You gave me nothing. No passion, no spontaneity, just your spreadsheets and schedules and plans." I laughed once, short, dry. "Right. So you went and found chaos to crawl into. And now you want to act like you were a victim of order." Her mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Is this true? Everything he said?" She turned to her mother, eyes wide and pleading. "Mom, he's manipulating the narrative. He's always been cold, controlling. He pushed me to this." "Pushed you?" I echoed. "No. I supported you. I believed in you. You used my stability like scaffolding to climb into someone else's bed. Don't you dare act like you were perfect," she shouted, stepping closer. "You think you're some saint because you didn't cheat? Emotional neglect is just as bad." I pointed at her, firm. "No, you don't get to rewrite the definition of betrayal just because it makes you feel less filthy. You didn't cheat because I neglected you. You cheated because you're weak. Because validation is your drug and lies are your method." Someone gasped. Her father looked away. Tara whispered something to her phone, probably texting someone that the collapse had finally arrived. She lunged again. "You don't understand what it's like to be me. To feel invisible." "You weren't invisible," I said calmly, cruelly. "You were just ordinary. And that terrified you." Her face twisted. "I hate you." "You don't," I said. "You hate that I stopped loving you. You hate that the game's over. That you can't use guilt, sex, or tears to pull me back in." Her voice cracked now. "I gave you the best years of my life." "No," I said, leaning in. "You gave me a performance. The best parts of you went to someone else. And the worst parts? You saved those for me." She screamed then, an actual, primal, animalistic scream that startled even her father. "You're heartless." "No," I replied coldly. "I'm just done." A few people moved to stand, trying to calm the storm, but I raised my hand. "Let her have this. Let her scream. It's the only honesty she's capable of now." Her knees shook. The tears came, ugly, gasping sobs that drenched the room in silence. No one moved to comfort her. Not Tara, not her mother, not even her father, who stared at the floor like it had betrayed him too. I stepped back, adjusted my cuff, and looked around the room. This is what betrayal looks like. This is what happens when someone trades loyalty for lust, then blames everyone else for the wreckage. She looked up, mascara smeared, eyes bloodshot. "What are you going to do now?" I smiled. "I already did it." And with that, I turned and walked out. Not victorious, not vengeful, just free. The door closed behind me, but the echoes stayed. She would remember every word. So would they. And for the rest of her life, no room she entered would ever be truly quiet again. 3 months after the storm, she was barely a whisper in the places she once dominated. The woman who used to command rooms with a laugh and a glass of overpriced wine now couldn't walk into a grocery store without people lowering their eyes or turning their backs. Her firm didn't fire her outright. They didn't have to. HR quietly reassigned her projects, locked her out of key meetings, and moved her desk to a corner so isolated she may as well have been working in exile. Eventually, she resigned, citing personal growth and burnout. But everyone knew. Word spreads fast when shame walks ahead of you. Her friends, what few hadn't already distanced themselves after Tara's quiet switch of allegiance, began disappearing one by one. Online, her social feeds dried up. No more filtered brunch photos, no vague captions about healing or vibrations. Just silence. No likes. No comments. just a digital graveyard of curated lies. And Drew? The man she burned everything for? He was gone the second exposure melted away secrecy. He didn't take her calls, didn't respond to her messages, didn't even show up to that last dinner she begged him to attend. He transferred to a branch 2 states away, started fresh, as if she were never more than a regrettable bookmark in his story. Her parents, once reluctant to take sides, stopped answering her late-night calls. Her father returned the folder I had left at their house with a note clipped inside that read, "We raised a daughter, not a stranger." Her mother, ever composed, simply blocked her. I heard from my lawyer that she tried to reverse some of the divorce agreements, claimed she was misled, confused, emotionally compromised. The judge didn't even bother entertaining it. She sold her car, moved out of the city, rented a tiny place in a town where no one asked questions and no one cared to. I imagined her sitting in that silence, scrolling through old pictures of a life she torched, wondering how it had all slipped through her fingers. And then she called. One night, after I'd finished dinner, phone buzzed, unknown number. I picked up, said nothing. Her voice cracked through the speaker like a ghost. "It's me. I need to say I'm sorry." I stayed silent. "You were the only person who ever really knew me," she said, trying to hold the pieces of her dignity together with shaky breath. "I didn't see it until I lost it. I was stupid. So stupid. But I still love you. I think about you every day." I let her words hang there, desperate, broken, pathetic in their vulnerability. Then I finally spoke. "Strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." The silence on her end was louder than any scream. She hung up first. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my door. Rain-soaked, makeup-streaked, clutching a letter like it was a lifeline. "Please," she whispered when I opened the door. "I just want to talk." I looked at her, and for the first time, truly saw what was left, a shadow of the woman I once knew, shattered from the inside out, begging to be seen. But she wasn't my wife anymore. That woman died the moment she chose to betray. And what stood before me now was just a reminder of what happens when you gamble everything and lose. I took the letter from her hand, glanced down at it, then tore it in half without a word. Her lip trembled. Her eyes pleaded. I stepped back inside, closed the door slowly, and never looked back. To anyone listening, thank you for walking with me through this. I hope you found it gripping. Now tell me, where are you listening from? And did you enjoy watching her burn?